regarding how difficult and heartbreaking of a decision this was for President Biden. He goes on to say, while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to step down.
Welcome back to Perceived Value Life podcast.
Perceived Value Life podcast. Yes.
Where there's your perspective, their perspective, and then somewhere in the middle, there's the truth.
The truth.
Yes.
True.
100%.
Liar!
You know what I noticed? I say 100% a lot. I don't know. Yes, when I was watching the our other podcast, I'd be saying 100% a lot. I'm gonna have to just.
Too. We had the debate. That was kind of the turning point. And of course, after the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, things really turned up. We had the RNC last week, right?
Yeah.
So since then, it's been a lot going on. We have the Democratic Party imploding, and we're going to talk a lot about why we think that is happening, why Donald Trump is in the lead in many states and has flipped some he's flipped some blue states into red, right?
Yep. And has won all of the swing states too.
Yeah, I'm kind of happy to see them imploding. They kind of need it, in my opinion.
It needs to change. The whole party needs to change. For the longest time, they've been playing on our fears, placating.
Who's our?
I would say black people.
Yes, thank you.
Playing on black people's fears, placating us, saying that they have hot sauce in their bag and everything, and trying to act like they relate to us when they actually win the election, they do nothing for us. So I feel like for the longest time,
they've been getting that vote automatically.
They automatically been getting that vote, and I feel like that we've been used. That's how I feel.
I think I totally agree. We've been used and we've been taken for granted for a long time. And I think that the Republican Party, it's kind of crazy when you think about it. Right now, the Republican Party is actually unified and they have their stuff together. And then the Democratic Party is the total opposite right now.
Vivek Ramaswamy.
Mm-hmm.
Ramaswamy. I think it's Ramaswamy.
Mm-hmm.
His speech. What I love about it is that he's specifically talking to the people who are really being affected by, I think, this election or just in general, like the way things are in the country.
Right. With immigration, if we take that alone, immigration, the Democratic Party hasn't really addressed it. The only thing they've really done in response to the Republican Party or Donald Trump is that to say that he is trying to demonize immigrants. You know, my parents were immigrants. I'm first generation here. My parents came here and they had to come here legally. So when you fly over the Atlantic and you land at JFK, guess what? They're like, yo, where's your paperwork? You go through immigration. You don't just get to come into the country and chill.
Yeah.
It's a problem. It's definitely a problem financially that the Democrats have not addressed it in a way.
Yeah.
To make anybody feel. They haven't even said, oh, you know what? We've made some mistakes. This is what we're going to do going forward. All they're doing is saying, hey, Donald Trump, they don't like immigrants. That's just not the case.
That's not the truth.
Vivek said in his speech, he was like, you know what? His parents are immigrants too.
His parents are immigrants. And he said, we want immigration. We want people to come in, and to live the American dream.
Right.
We want you to establish your businesses and support your family. But what we don't want is for you to do it illegally.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Every country protects their borders. You can't just let anybody in your country because you don't know who they are. If they're not documented, you don't know who they are. And it's important to know who's in your country.
This is a whole spectrum of services needed for people who are new to a place, new to a country, new to a city. Everything from finding warm clothes for them, to finding jobs for them, to finding shelter for them. These are complicated issues to manage. So the city, the state, and the federal government, frankly, was not prepared for it.
Texas is providing charter buses to send these illegal immigrants who have been dropped off by the Biden administration to Washington, D.C. We are sending them to the United States Capitol where the Biden administration will be able to more immediately address the needs of the people that they are allowing to come across our border.
So the historians will probably record the current migrant crisis as a chapter of busing migrants. This kind of coordinated, dramatic busing of asylum seekers from the border to the cities inside the countries is completely unprecedented.
And then I want to go back. I'm going to go back to another piece where they just talk about the actual finances.
And this crisis is expensive. In 2018, New York City spent roughly $258 million to fund its immigration services, adjusted for inflation. By fiscal year 2023, the city had spent $1.47 billion servicing those seeking asylum. The city of Chicago spent over $194 million on its new arrivals mission since October 2022. Denver is estimated to have spent between $36.3 million to $39.1 million on migrant support services in 2023.
The three biggest items for expenses for new arrivals is housing, education, and healthcare. And they're all three high-ticket items.
The idea that we could have a generous system of welfare benefits from health to education and so on, and allow the entire world to access those benefits is just mathematically impossible. So we're starting to see the math not adding up
Math ain't
in
mathing.
state.
The math ain't mathin'. So when you
Wow.
have that, those are just facts. That's not a Republican or Democrat or liberal or conservative issue. These are just facts.
Right.
So when you have that going on under a Democratic presidency, you have to deal with it. So the question is, it's not about liking or not liking immigrants. The question is this a crisis? And everybody with any common sense knows that that's a crisis.
Absolutely.
And if the Democratic Party can't deal with it, or they haven't been able to say, okay, well, this is what's happened and this is our plan, it appears to me as the common person that they have all these people coming in, asylum seekers or whatever have you, come to the country. They're getting bused to major cities. They're getting set up with housing, healthcare, and employment. So some of these migrants, the idea is that, some people come in and they have what you would call private support, meaning family or communities they can go into.
Okay.
And they talk about how there's a huge majority of, let's just say, Venezuelan migrants that come in. They may not necessarily have a community that they can go to, who family members or cousins, whoever who
They can help them out.
They can help them out.
Yeah.
So when you have large people who come in who have no support system, they have to be supported by federal or state,
Right.
right? So those are coming from tax dollars. That's a real issue.
That's it right there. That's it right there.
You know?
Because it's coming from our taxpayer, our money.
Our money.
Our money.
Yes, absolutely. And they have yet to really address that issue. So that's a big problem.
Yeah, because you also have to look at the current people who are residing here. It's important. I know migration or having immigrants here is important. It helps with the structure of the economy, but you also have to focus on the people who are also living here. So if you have this influx of people coming into your country, they're not set up yet to pay taxes. They're not initially set up to help contribute to the economy. So all of that money is coming out of our pockets to help support their housing, to help support their education, to support their healthcare needs. And that's not fair for the people who are already living here, who can't even pay their own car insurance. Or who can't find a house because the taxes are so high.
Or homeless.
Or who are homeless. Right.
Exactly.
Can't even get a decent meal. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
it's backwards, man.
It's backwards.
It's backwards. And they're gonna have to change that if they want to be back in control again.
Well, not to
because
mention,
we're not tolerating it anymore. There's a lot of people who are saying no, enough of it. There's enough people to say no. That's why Trump is in the position that he's in. He's ahead. And
well,
that's
you
part
also
of the
said
reason
earlier
why.
that again, going back to the immigration too, is that are the people coming over, you don't know who they are. So
Right.
that's another issue. You don't of course you have some people who are coming over who are just seeking asylum, but you don't know who is a criminal, who's not a criminal. That's the whole point of immigration. Is to make
Exactly.
sure you know who's coming into your country.
And that's another thing. There's already a high rate of crime happening in New York. I mean, I go to CVS and they have toothpaste locked up. I mean, all of these robberies that are happening aren't all those who are illegal, but I mean, it doesn't help. It doesn't help
It doesn't help.
because
It's
you don't
already,
you don't
it's already
know.
an issue there.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
it doesn't help.
Yeah.
So yeah, that has to be addressed.
It's not looking good for the Dems. And the consensus is,
Well, like you said,
can't win!
well, like you said
What F.
earlier,
Kennedy
maybe
Jr.?
we'll get back to this.
mhm,
It's good that the Democratic Party is having this major identity crisis
yeah,
within their party,
yeah,
because it's going to make them hopefully look at the situation, look at if they don't understand by now why the Republican Party is leading, they have a lot of self-reflecting to do as a party.
yeah.
They have a lot of
So right.
self-reflecting to do as a party. And because it's very clear to me, it's clear to a lot of people as to why it's turning this way.
Yeah,
So they're going to have to reform or retransform themselves
yeah,
as a party and
100%.
start focusing on their current citizens and doing what's best for this country.
Yeah. What's important, I think what's really important is being yourself. That's
Yeah.
what I think is going to connect. If you're talking about the black vote, you have to learn to be yourself
Yeah.
because pandering is very old in my opinion. It's kind of outdated.
Right.
And I think that there were times where you could pander to black people. There was a different generation of black people
Right.
who would respond to that positively in a way, but
But not this younger generation, and obviously
not even our generation.
not even
at
our
this point. You know what I'm
generation,
saying?
because it's been happening time and time and time again, and it's getting old. It's been happening since
You can
your
see
girl,
who that.
Hillary Clinton. You
Oh
said,
well,
remember how we were having that conversation? Like this is like strike number 3 for the Democrats, and we can tell you what strike number 1 was, strike number 2, and this is strike number 3. You're out. You're gonna have to figure it out
so what do
and
you
do
think strike number
something
one was?
different.
You
Well,
think it was Hillary won? And
yes.
then what was Kamala Harris number
Okay, no. Remember we were having this discussion earlier because we were like, this started happening, like the decline of the Democratic Party
Okay, so
started with Hillary Clinton.
that's what I think. Some
Yeah,
people,
I mean,
some
it makes
people,
sense to
some
me.
people might disagree, but
Yeah.
I felt like, and we could, I have a clip I want to pull up. It's how Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump in 60 seconds.
Yes. Okay. I love that.
It's a quick clip, but I don't think Hillary Clinton. If you look at that that election, I don't think Hillary Clinton saw herself losing. She didn't understand why she lost until after, and I think where the country was at in that time, 2015, the country is kind of in the same point right now, in my opinion. It's actually a little bit more awakened. I can parallel those two times because at the time, you know, Trump came in and it was kind of like, oh, who is this? Donald Trump's going to run for president?
Right.
And Hillary Clinton, obviously, she wanted to be president in 2008. But Barack was just a way better candidate because people thought at the time, I remember people arguing with me saying Barack Obama didn't have enough experience and that Hillary Clinton was obviously going to win and maybe he could be her VP. I remember having that conversation with people. And I'm like, I don't know. I said, you know, he's really connecting with people.
Absolutely.
And that's what Barack was doing. He was just connecting with young people in a way that no one ever saw.
Yeah.
So Hillary had to play her position, wait her turn. So she waited 8 long years because Barack was just that popular. And then when 2016 came, her attitude was like,
I got this in the
yo,
bag.
it's obviously me. And on comes Donald Trump, the apprentice guy, the casino guy.
Yeah.
You know, it's like he's gonna run against me. And
Surely they're not going to take him seriously.
yeah, surely you're not gonna go for him. But you know, it's just interesting. So let me play this clip. And I thought this clip was interesting because it just kind of summarizes some of the things. So.
Hillary Clinton unexpectedly lost the states of Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Iowa. Those are states that have gone Democratic in past elections. The question is, why did they switch this time? The reasons, really, you can look for them in the outstates of those regions. In central and western Pennsylvania, outside Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, outside Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati, Ohio, outside Detroit and Grand Rapids, Michigan, outside Milwaukee and Madison, Wisconsin, and in the whole state of Iowa. What hurt Hillary Clinton there? Number one, economy. These are areas that feel left behind. Donald Trump appealed to them with his program. Number two was condescension. Hillary Clinton called people voting for Trump deplorables and irredeemables, implicit racists. That doesn't win you votes. And the third thing was honesty. The outstates went heavily against Richard Nixon and the Republicans during the Watergate. They went against Hillary Clinton and her secret email server and the Democrats in 2016.
Well, hot damn. That was
Economy. Yeah. That was it right there.
wait. Tell me that doesn't parallel to now.
Oh my
What they
gosh.
say? They
Yes.
said
Yeah,
economy,
economy for sure.
and
Yep.
then they said this is how Hillary Clinton was referring to people who wanted to vote for Trump. She called people who like him deplorable, and it was this whole elitist attitude, like these country bumpkins or whoever want to vote for Donald Trump, or you stupid people who want to vote for Donald Trump. So she did that.
Calling them racist again, working on that emotional aspect of politics.
Well, and then
Just
not understanding the people who might want to vote for him.
yes.
And you can't diss them because they could be potentially your voters,
They
but
could be.
you kind of,
But you have to convince them.
you
You
gotta
can't
convince
you
them.
can't be hating on the other candidate and putting all this hate out there saying all of this whole group
Yeah,
is nothing but a bunch of racists.
and they don't owe you the vote.
Right.
So
You
now,
gotta earn that.
now at that time, she didn't necessarily play the racist thing, but she called them deplorable.
Right.
And I don't know the context and how she said it, but the impression was that you people who are voting for Donald Trump are stupid.
hmm
The race thing didn't quite come into play yet at that early
I
time.
think that's what they associated Trump with, though.
I don't think. Well, I don't remember that being something that was implied so much in 2016.
Okay.
I think that was something that happened later after he had the first term, and then they January 6th and all that stuff
Right.
happened too. But it could have, I'm just saying. But based on this video, they talk about how she referred to the voters, and then thirdly,
And then she
and
wasn't relatable on top
she
of
wasn't
that. She wasn't
relatable.
relatable
Yes,
or appeared to be honest.
yes. Sorry,
That was
that's
the number
I
3.
lost the point.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. I lost it. You're absolutely right. She was not seen as honest. The difference between 2020 and 2024 is that I think 4 years ago we had COVID going on. It was a heck of a close election, and some of these deciding factors that are going on weren't in play. But that implosion, that definitely Hillary was strike one. I think they should have saw this 8 years ago. And
Saw that they weren't relating to the people.
yes,
Saw that the way the economy was, how it was going.
yeah,
They should have seen this coming. A trend. That's what you
right,
call it. You should
yes,
see the
you
trends
should see the trend.
and be able to respond to the trends. And I
hmm
think what's happening right now is the Republican Party, they're responding to the trends.
Right, they're responding. I think they were on point. I think Donald Trump. People weren't analyzing it when he won the election, but if you look back, remember when Trump won, when he was running against
hmm
Hillary, it was kind of, I didn't vote for Donald Trump at the time,
hmm
but it was like, hmm, with Donald Trump when
Yeah,
he
I
started
didn't vote
running,
for him at
it
the
was, it
time
was,
either. It was very
it was
interesting, very
interesting.
intriguing.
Yeah,
I would say I was very intrigued because I'm listening to him, and you know how he talks. He
right,
just it's not politically correct at
right,
all.
right.
Um, he kind of shoots from the hip.
Of course, yeah,
Um, and he responds with snide remarks. So it was very entertaining,
right,
and it kind of drew me in because I'm like, what is he really? I was just entertained. I
yeah,
wasn't even thinking about the
right,
policies or
right,
anything like that. I was just
right.
purely entertained. And I'm like, I wonder
What is
if
this
he
guy?
becomes president, what is this going to look like? And
Right,
they played on the fact that he didn't have um, any
political
political
experience.
experience. He doesn't know how to run the country. He doesn't know how to work with foreign leaders. And,
Mm,
they played on that with
mm.
when it came, that in 2016. But now they can't do that now because he has been a president. What?
I want to hit because you hit something that was important, right? So
Okay.
they did play on the fact he didn't have the experience,
Right.
but it tells you something if there's intrigue there. Because if the
Right.
American people felt like this guy is so inexperienced,
Yeah.
we can't trust him, that would have been a point to really turn people off. But in
Right.
fact, it actually turned people, in my opinion, it kind of turned people on. They're like,
That should have
maybe,
been something for the Democrats to pay attention to. What
yes,
is
yes.
this?
Because if we're
What is
talking
this?
about
Why
experience,
is the world responding, not the world, but the country responding to him in
100%.
this way?
Right. And they didn't really, they weren't attracted to Hillary Clinton's experience. Of course, she had a ton of experience in relation to government in comparison to Trump, but people didn't, they weren't turned on by that at
Yeah.
all. They were turned off by the fact of she wasn't relating and talking to them.
Right.
That's where the country is. This is not the middle 90s. This isn't you coming off of a great economy in the late 90s, early 2000s. There's a reason why. It's just a different time. And where the country is now, we have a total different world than we had in the 90s.
Oh, yes.
And
Mhm.
even 20 years ago, early 2000s. We have social media. We have everything is news, is quick, and it's very impactful in a quick, short amount of time. People
Yeah.
are not going to sit back and go with the status quo.
Right.
They are very much swayed easily by what they see.
Even
And
when Biden was running, he went on to the Breakfast Club and said, "You're not black if you don't vote Democrat."
right.
You
That was in
know,
the 2020 election.
that was in the
Yeah.
2020 election. So it's just like that same old ain't gonna work anymore.
Well, take the Breakfast Club interview. So you see how in 2020 that, I wouldn't say it worked, but it was allowed,
It
right?
was
It was
allowed.
tolerated.
And
Do you
to think
but
that
do
that
you
was
think that will work?
okay.
Do you think that will work now?
No, it's not working now because of that. You saw that Kamala Harris
Forget the Kamala
commer-
Harris video for a
commercial.
second. I know, I
Everybody
know.
was like disgusted by it.
But let's take. I'm just gonna take the same.
Like,
Let's
really?
take the same commercial. I think it was tolerated then. It was kind of normal. I don't think anybody was offended. But
Would
if
have
you
been shaking my head.
right
If I
now,
was in that interview, I'd be like, "What do you mean by that?"
no, right now it wouldn't work. Right now, it
Can't
definitely
make a
wouldn't
statement
work.
like I'd be like, "What do you mean by that? What does that mean?"
Well, because 4 years ago,
Well, I know what it means.
4 years ago, you didn't have the things we're talking about. You didn't
Yeah.
have 4 years ago in 2020. You did not have high inflation yet. You
Yeah.
didn't have. You had house prices that were high, but the rates were very low. So you didn't have the housing issue per se, right? You did not have busting up the migrants or immigration issues. You didn't have that in 2020.
Yeah.
So 4 years later, with the issues that you have now, to go on it and just say, well, you're not black if you don't vote for me,
Yeah.
black people is not going to respond to that,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it, some of this has a lot to do with his response to the wars that are going on too. You have, the Israel and Gaza war.
Hmm.
I don't know if Ukraine and Russia, if that war is as impactful as the war between Israel and Palestine. So, because you have a lot of eyes looking at that now. It's not just
Right.
the regular standard media
Right.
covering it anymore and giving
Right.
their perspective,
Right.
the liberal perspective or the conservative perspective on it.
Right.
You have actual people, day-to-day people reporting
Reporting on it.
live from over there and giving us the information.
Yeah, I think it's
So it's just a combination
it's
of
a combination of things.
that's bringing the whole party down right now and needing down to the ground to the where you're at a point now where you need to restructure.
Yeah.
Like you got to
Well,
restructure from the bottom and then try to work your way back up.
they got to have clarity.
Yeah.
That's what the Democratic Party lacks, clarity. This is a Democracy Now! Clip. This is a very liberal station,
Mm.
and they have a professor from Howard on there. They talk about how Trump is gaslighting the black community, and
That's interesting.
the fact that he's, he is racist and he's gaslighting the community. I want to just talk about racism for a second.
Okay.
I'm going to play this clip though because I think it's interesting. He talks a little bit. It's not a really long clip, but it just talks about his perspective on gaslighting the black community. So let's check it out.
Our previous guest just pointed out, it's important to know that this idea of replacement theory, that whites are being threatened by these cultural invaders, is something that the Donald Trump wing of the party has been using ever since Donald Trump stepped onto the national stage. The article I wrote in The Nation was to point out that we don't have to memory hold what Donald Trump's history of racism has been, but more importantly, also who has supported Donald Trump. Ever since he stepped onto this stage, every avowed racist in the country, Ku Klux Klanners, neo-Nazis, avowed fascists, have backed Donald Trump. And he's been able to get away with that kind of support because in many ways...
That little section.
Yeah, what was that? How did that even fit
No,
into the context of this conversation, of his
no. Oh,
conversation?
you mean, did you see Rudy Giuliani, the one who fell in
Oh,
that
okay.
aisle?
That's who I didn't know who
That
that was. Okay. I'm like, why are they showing a clip of this guy falling? What does this mean with
No,
racism?
it was just a clip, but that clip of him falling in the aisle. There was another little clip on I don't know, wherever, Instagram or something. It was talking about that was a clip of Rudy Giuliani's finances. Because he had to file bankruptcy.
Yeah.
So I was talking about that was like the imagery of his finances just fall into nothing. I don't know how he tripped in the aisle, but that was funny. But anyway.
The media has evaded questioning him about that. But this has become the way in which the Republican Party in 2024, a party of grievance, extremism, and racism, operates and function. And so it's really critical to not let this memory be lost of Donald Trump's policies and behavior over the last number of years and how that has permeated the Republican Party.
As you point out in a recent interview in Time magazine, Trump suggested the problem was really anti-white racism. If you look right now, there's absolutely a bias against white people, and that's a problem, Trump said. Your response, Professor Lusane?
So Trump, again, is leaning into his base. And what the data is showing is that for at least the last 10 years or so, if not even before then, that a majority of whites, and particularly Republican voters, believe that racism in this country exists against white people, that black people, that Latinos, that Asians basically do not have issues with institutional or systemic racism, but it's actually whites that are being targeted.
Let's talk about Trump and racism for a second, right?
Okay.
So this is my thing. There's the issue of racism is very nuanced, right? So you have systematic racism and you have personal racism, right? I don't think you can ever legislate or get rid of personal racism.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know who likes black people
Mm-hmm.
or brown people and who doesn't like, you can't legislate personal feelings. You just can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
But you have systematic racism. So the issue is, to me, when it comes to speaking to as far as black people in the country, right? The idea that, neo-Nazis and Ku Klux Klan or people who don't like black people follow Trump, that's not really something, honestly, that is something that black people can really deal with or focus on. Because I say that meaning that the idea that there's no racists on the Democratic side is a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
So racism, the boogeyman of racism can't be what we look at.
Right.
Can't be the only thing we look at, because racism is so nuanced. And a lot of times I think they mix in personal racism versus systematic racism.
Mm-hmm.
So meaning that the people who are following Trump, who knows? I can't control who likes him, doesn't like him. I'm not even saying that I'm a Trumper. I'm just saying that I can't be like, just because I know some people who are racist, who I think are racist, are following Trump, I can't listen to nothing else he got to say.
And if they are following Trump, what does that have to do with your... Okay. So even if they are following Trump, the Republican Party is, I guess, considered the party where the racist and they feel empowered.
Right.
Let's just say that.
Right.
But their empowerment has, to me, I haven't seen it affect my day-to-day living.
Right.
Right. I'm working a full-time job. I'm able to work. I'm able to provide my family with food. I feel comfortable walking out in my community and not
Right.
being personally attacked.
Right.
I can stand right there in the aisle next to somebody who is white and still grab, broccoli and whatever else that I need. It's not stopping my day-to-day functioning.
Right.
So for racism to be even part of um the equation of as if that is affecting you on an individual level, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
It doesn't make sense to me.
It's not enough.
I mean, racism is an issue. We all agree with that.
At the end of the day, then if that's the case, then that means if racism would say, if your idea of racism say, I'm not voting for the Republicans or anybody who's Republican or Donald Trump for that matter because he's racist or racist like him, then the inverse would say that nobody who is voting, nobody who's down with Joe Biden or part of the administration, that would imply that nobody is racist on the other side.
Right.
That's just stupid. It's not only stupid, but it's very short-sighted and it's lazy. So, this whole world and this whole thing is very nuanced, and you can't just sit here and be like, you know what, they're racist, they're not. That's exactly how the Democrats have been able to take these votes for granted. And where the country is now, the reason why you see so much black and brown vote starting to support, because there is support for Trump. And the reason why you're seeing that is that they're not responding to that quick fast food racism thing, and they're like,
It's
yo,
just like racist.
of course,
okay.
of course there's
Nope,
racist.
I'm not going that way. I'm going over here. But
That don't work. Of course
not
there's
working anymore.
there's racist. Of
course
course there's
there's
racism.
racism.
Of course there is racism. Absolutely there is.
On
But
both sides.
anywhere.
Anywhere.
So I just don't look at either party as racist or not. And
Right.
that's the branding, that's the generic branding that used to work for the Democratic Party, and that's why they in the
In the position that they're in now.
yeah, and that's why
They got to restructure because
stop that.
because doing that blanket umbrella thing with with racism and with if you're not black, if you don't vote Democrat,
Yeah,
just that
that's-
blanket thing.
it's
No,
horrible. It's
that's
horrible.
just not how you get the vote. You got to exercise your right to vote, and that means you got to prove to us
Yeah.
why we should vote to
Right,
you,
right.
vote for you. The main things that are being focused on with this particular election, I think everybody is feeling the economics. Everybody is feeling. It's not like one group of people here, one group of people
Right.
here. Everybody is feeling it.
Yeah.
So when they bring these problems to the table, they talk about us. They don't talk about one group of people. They
Right.
talk about us. They
Right.
talk about how this illegal migration is affecting us,
Right.
living here in this country.
Yep. It's very difficult to deal with racism when it comes to any political election. It's just too nuanced. So again, that's why it's not working. It's
Yeah.
because as far as the Democratic Party, like you said, with the Republicans, they are speaking about some main issues that affect everybody. So
Yeah.
the idea, whether it's Ku Klux Klan, neo-Nazi, all of those parties, they exist anyway,
Yeah.
whether Joe Biden is president or whether Barack Obama is president,
Right.
whether Donald Trump is president, all these groups exist anyway.
Right.
So as far as black people with personal racism that's going on in your day-to-day life, like you said, you're going to have to choose as a black person. You got to choose where you live, right? You got to choose to support your community.
Mhm.
You got to choose to where you want to send your kids.
Mhm.
These are personal things that we deal with.
Mhm.
So no government is going to legislate anything about that's going to eradicate racism. That's
Right.
just the problem. The only thing that could be dealt with as far as the government is going to be institutional racism. And
Right.
institutional racism isn't, most of the time it's not institutional racism. That's not what they try to play to black people. They try to play personal racism.
Yeah.
They try to play into that. So like you
Right.
said earlier, it doesn't affect your day-to-day
Right.
life. Most black people are not affected by personal racism in their day-to-day life.
Right.
Most of them not. Day in, day out, what most black people are going through is economics, right? They're
Mhm.
going through not necessarily immigration directly, but
hmm
these are things that affect
If you're a taxpayer,
our
you are
lives.
going through
You're
it.
going through it. You may
Yep.
not see it, but
Right.
you going through it. So the Republican Party they are definitely addressing those main things. So you got to understand something. When you look at why people like Donald Trump, and this is obvious, we're just saying our opinion, right?
Yeah.
Why would you have a president or somebody who is racist and hates black people or hates Jewish people or like the neo-Nazi Ku Klux? How could you have somebody who likes that president and have people who are of those groups, black people and other
Supporting
minorities,
them.
supporting the same person?
Yeah.
Why would that happen? How
Yep.
can that happen? Well, the reason why is that 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 candidate is speaking to things that those two groups who may not like each other have in common.
Yep.
And that's the nuance of everyday life.
I mean, and then you also have to look at who is being surrounded by Trump and supporting Trump. Like the people who spoke at the RNC convention, Vivek Ramaswamy is a person of color.
Yeah.
JD Vance wife
Oh, I'm
is
glad
a person of color. You
you
know,
brought it up.
he came from humble grounds. He didn't come into it. He didn't come into politics with money.
Nope.
He came from humble grounds. He struggled in a single parent household. You know, his mother apparently had dealt with some addiction and now she's like 10 months sober.
hmm
So, I mean, he grew up regular just like a lot of us,
Yeah.
and he's married to a person of color. So why
Who's
would
he married to?
I
JD?
have to look up her?
Is she Indian?
She's Indian.
Okay. But you
Yeah,
know what?
she's
That's
Indian.
that's a great point because the Republican Party, let's look, and again, it goes back to looking at what's beyond 2024. Because the Democrats, again, to me, they are short sighted again. They were short sighted in 2016, and they're short sighted now. This is bigger than Trump. It's about understanding because look, and if Trump wins in 4 years, he can't be president anymore. You know who's coming behind him? J.D. Vance or Vivek, I can't say
Ramaswamy.
Ramaswamy. These are two, um, especially Vivek. I know more about him. I've seen him speak more. These are people who are going to come after Trump. These
Yeah.
are people y'all going to have to deal with in 4 years
Mhm.
to real. You're going to have some strong candidates because here you
Mhm.
have somebody who's Indian, is a person of color who is also speaking a little bit more directly about certain
Mhm.
things. He isn't pandering. They aren't
He's a
saying
millennial.
he's a millennial. So
Yep.
these are you shouldn't be even worried about Donald Trump. You need to
Right.
be worried about the people coming after
Because
Donald
they can
Trump.
all relate
They can
to
all
everything
relate.
that's going on right now.
Yes. And the Democratic Party right now, from what I see, right, they don't have anybody beyond. They don't. They don't have anybody now. Let
It's
alone
relatable.
let alone in 2028 or 2032. So they need to start looking a little bit further out
Yes.
and start really looking at that point. And
Yep.
that's why they're in the scenario they are in. And
Mhm.
really at the end of the day, um when the election comes around and when you start to look at the makeup of the vote, I'm really curious to see how much black and brown vote that the
Yes.
Republican Party gets this time because
Yes. Me
they're
too.
they're, they're trying hard and
They're gonna break it down.
they
I would
haven't
like to
come
see
with
the
much.
breakdown now, honestly, just to see where it's at right now. I know it's not, it's close. It's close to the election time,
It's
but I would like to see where that black and brown vote is currently. And I would like to see the trend.
yeah.
I want to see how it trends
I
throughout
love to see what the
the
support
rest of
was in
this year.
2020 versus now.
Yeah.
What's changed in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
There are tons of issues.
Gavin Newsom recently passed a bill, and I think it might be put into law or
Mhm.
currently is put into law. You're going to definitely see on this next clip um, the conundrum
The conundrum.
that's happening in California.
Oh man.
I mean, it's been a steady build up. I mean, some of the laws and bills that they have passed in California have been a little questionable. Like what? But this one is just like, damn! Stop. Stop.
Stop it.
And
Well,
stop it. And a lot of people are moving out of California because of this bill. So it's now there's a migration happening.
Well,
in
look,
California
but look, see, here's the issue I have with the Dems.
within our
The
country, I guess.
The
Yeah,
Dems,
whatever. Moving to
you got to
Texas.
give it to the Republicans because they stand on something. They stand on whatever they stand on. You can agree
Yeah.
or disagree.
Yep.
Now, this video, this whole, just to talk about it quickly before it comes on, is um about a child deciding if they're going to be
Well, if a
what
child decides,
gender
yeah, what gender?
and whether to.
If a child claims, say it's a boy, a little boy, and he wants to be referred, and the pronoun is she, so it's about how the child perceives themselves. Do you perceive yourself as a little boy or do you perceive yourself as a girl? No longer do the schools have to communicate what the child has communicate to the school officials. They don't have to communicate that to the parents. Like your son is saying that, he feels like a little girl, so we just thought
We're talking about kids.
we're talking about kids. And we just thought that we'd let you know that this is, how he's portraying
So
himself
they don't need to
here at
tell
school.
anybody that.
No longer do you have to, no longer does is it the school's responsibility to inform the parents of this change.
Hey everybody, it's Mike Schellenberger for Public. I'm afraid I have some terrible news. The governor of America's largest and richest state has just signed a law that puts 10 million children and adolescents in grave danger of medical mistreatment. The media headlines are all wrong. They claim that California Governor Gavin Newsom's new law protects children by stopping public schools from outing their gender to their parents. In fact, it does just the opposite of that. This new law makes children vulnerable to irreversible and lifelong medical abuse and mistreatment. And it's all based on a pseudoscientific idea that some children are born into the wrong bodies and that we can change a person's sex through drugs and surgery. Now, for any of this to make sense, you have to understand what's happening right now in Britain. Several years ago, the government there appointed a well-respected pediatrician named Hilary Cass to investigate whether it was ethical to block the puberty of children, give them opposite-sex hormones, and perform surgeries on their bodies in an effort to make them feel better about their gender. Dr. Cass came back a few weeks ago and said no, absolutely not. Around the same time, the British government banned puberty blockers nationwide. And just a few days ago, the new Labour Party government affirmed that it would maintain the former Conservative government's ban on puberty blockers. In her report, Cass said that so-called social transition, where a child adopts the identity of the opposite sex, is not a neutral act and has psychological consequences. In fact, it's the first step towards medical intervention. What Gavin Newsom has done is actively prevented schools from informing parents that their children have been put on a medical pathway. This is an outrageous attack on both the rights of the children and the parents. Children have a right to go through puberty. No adult should be able to block their puberty. And parents have a right to know if their children thinks that they are the opposite sex or were born into the wrong body. We have seen with leaked internal documents from the leading gender medicine group WPATH that these medical interventions, namely puberty blockers, hormones, and surgeries, are not only irreversible but result in sterilization and loss of sexual function. Children and adolescents are simply not mature enough to understand the effects of so-called gender-affirming care. They cannot, in other words, give their informed consent. The new law that Gavin Newsom just signed creates the grave risk that activist teachers, students, and outside groups will convince children that they were born into the wrong body and then hide their social transition from parents, which will lead to these harmful medical mistreatments. As such, the law that was passed is the opposite of what both children and their parents need. We need schools to immediately warn parents if their children think they are the opposite sex. After all, this is a diagnosable psychiatric condition known as gender dysphoria. And if your child has a psychiatric disorder, whether it's anxiety, depression, an eating disorder, or gender dysphoria, you as a parent have a right to know. And schools must stop teaching children or allowing other people to teach children this pseudoscientific and dehumanizing ideas that it's possible to be born in the wrong body and that it's possible to change one's sex. It's not.
So,
Well, you know
what do
what?
you have to say about this one? 'Cause I know I got a mouthful.
Well, you can only go so far with this stuff, until it's just like too much. I already feel like the way California is moving right now is just way, way, way too impinging on a child just being a child,
Mm-hmm.
and a parent trying to just be a parent. Now you're
Right.
trying to put laws into place that allows um, the teaching of things that a child just cannot comprehend.
Right.
They're not able to comprehend, for heaven's sakes, like an adult's brain
Mm-hmm.
is considered completely, you know, finished all of its stages at the age of what, 25?
25. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's when the cerebral cortex or something is fully developed at
Fully
25.
developed. So just to start there by, incorporating information that a child can't really comprehend or know. They're just so innocent and their brains are just so fragile. um,
Yeah.
um, to try and teach and try to get them to understand that it doesn't it should never have started, honestly. And now I feel like they're pushing the envelope way too far beyond comfortability of a lot of people to
Who's they?
allow who, huh?
Who's they? I'm messing with you. I'm saying who's they? I want to know who they is. So I
Well,
know who I think they is, but
this person is a liberal, he's a Democrat, so I don't know if it's a liberal agenda for that.
you know it's a liberal agenda. You know it.
I'm gonna
I mean, you may not
I
want to
ain't trying
indict
to
him.
offend nobody, but that's where it's coming from, y'all. I mean, these are just the facts, and this is just the truth of the matter. It's coming from a liberal, someone who is liberal.
Yeah.
Okay, he's a freaking mayor.
Right.
Okay, so that's just facts.
Yeah.
So yeah, now you're saying you don't have to tell the parents about it. That's just no, 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 no. If I was in California, I would be on those steps. And hopefully, I have a group of people with me holding up signs saying, you cannot allow my child to make this decision without a parent's consent or without a parent's acknowledgement or knowledge of it. And then you're going to start a medical pathway to treat them accordingly to how they feel when
Yeah.
their brain isn't even capable of understanding how complex that whole situation is, or
Hmm.
I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. So I don't know what is going on right now in California, and I certainly hope the people speak up on this right for a child to have their freedom. Their body should be able to experience puberty. Yes. They should not have that right taken away from them.
Yeah.
And for the parents to have uh the right of being a parent. You can't take that right from the mother or the father. They need to be able to parent their child.
Right.
So I think you know where I stand on that.
Well, yeah, hey, listen, we're parents. We have
Yes.
children, and we definitely agree. I think that this goes back to, I'm not going to put this all on Democrats, but again, it goes back to the Democratic Party.
Mm.
Gavin Newsom is a Democrat, and the Democratic Party and the liberal movement, um, they don't have any borderline as how far they're going to go with certain things. So, in my opinion, obviously people don't like touching this subject, but when it comes to gay and homosexual rights, to me, this is you know, let me just say, I don't, we all know people who are gay or homosexual,
Yes.
and I don't have any issue with people who like the opposite sex. I'm not one of those people that's have these big issues or anything negative to say. But the point is that within gay, I think this starts from gay rights, and then it's expanded so far to the point where obviously it includes transsexuals and stuff like that. And then because if you think back a couple years ago, it was like transsexual rights and violence against transsexuals was a big issue a couple of years ago,
Yes.
and it's now kind of expanded on the children. So the problem I have with the liberal or the democratic movement, or let's just say liberal, I'll say liberal, right, is that there's no borderline. They don't have borders as to
They don't have a hard stop
they don't have a
anywhere.
hard stop anywhere.
Yeah.
And one of the things that the Republicans or the conservative movement agree or disagree, they do have hard stops on things.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And that's where the liberal slash democratic movement needs
Yeah.
to start having positions and full stops and borderlines to certain subjects, because you can't lump that all into gay rights.
Right.
You can't lump everything into racism. These are huge things. So at the end of the day, it's not either you let the children decide what they want to be, or you hate gay people.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's
No.
what is happening in that party to me.
Mhm.
So there are a lot of people within the liberal, or let's just say Democratic Party mindset, who are not with that,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
They're not with that. It doesn't automatically make you a Trumper or make you automatically conservative,
Right.
but you're not with that. And
Right.
that's the problem with the Democratic Party, is that they're just all over the place and they just include everything. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Because you won't have anybody on the Democratic Party saying, or I haven't seen anybody say, you know what? Yeah, I'm a Democrat. I'm a liberal. I have liberal mindsets. I have liberal positions in this world, but I don't agree with Gavin Newsom.
Right.
That's too far. You
Yeah.
don't have anybody saying that, and that, to me, that creates a problem. And
Well,
for me, I'm not with
I
that.
think some of the people that are moving out, I mean, Elon Musk, he's mentioned that he's leaving California because of this, because he has I think two of his children are transsexuals,
Mhm.
and he doesn't even agree with it.
Wow,
He doesn't even agree with
that
it.
says a that
And he
says
was
a
like,
lot. That says
I'm
a lot.
leaving California and I'm going to Texas because
I'm
that,
serious. That's
yeah,
crazy. And his children are transsexual.
yes.
Wow.
And he doesn't even, he thinks that's too far.
Well, from
A parent should always be involved.
right. You know what? That's actually
He's a parent.
a great example, because if his children are transsexual and he's saying that's not cool, then that just says, okay, he doesn't have an issue with the transsexual part, but he has the issue with the
Infringing on parents'
infringing on
rights.
parents' rights and the
Yes.
stage of when a child makes that decision.
Yes.
So that's what it's about. And that's just, the country's going too far with that stuff. It's going too far with infringing on parents' rights, deciding what kids are able to do. Because if that's the case, then let kids drink when they feel like drinking. Let them smoke when they feel like they want to smoke. You know what I'm saying? Like, if that's the case, they should go to the military. If they feel like going to the military at 16, go ahead. Go ahead, son. Go ahead.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
you got to have some guidelines,
Yeah.
and when they can make choices. But it's just crazy, man. It's crazy, and that's why Trump and them winning, man. That's why they winning.
In a nutshell, that's why they win.
'Cause
And the Democratic Party is going through an identity crisis.
They're
They got to find out who they are, what they stand for, put some hard red lines on things,
Yeah,
like make it very clear to the public what you're about. Because right now everything has been so vague
oh my
and
God.
encased in just different umbrellas.
Yep.
And that's the word. It's like you say the word and you expect everybody to emotionally respond and be like, yeah, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, you gotta make yourself a little bit more clear
Yep.
and talk to the people, make yourself a lot more relatable,
Yep. Absolutely.
because you should this is just number 3.
That's number 3. That's strike 3.
Strike 3.
Is that
You almost out. You
I
almost
think they
out.
are.
So whoever's going to be on this next ticket, listen to what we're saying. Trust in what we're saying, because we are the people.
Yeah.
We are the people.
Yeah, please do.
Just
You got to
be
get it right.
authentic, be yourself. I don't want to say be yourselves and be authentic. Be clear.
I think that's fair.
Okay,
Be
be
yourself.
authentic.
Be
You just
yourself.
honestly just be yourself.
be
I mean, if
yourself.
you about this country, if you about this country, then please show that you about this country and do things that's going to help the people.
You know what? Let me touch on something that you just said for a minute. So one of the things I'm talking about black people now, right? So one of the things that I think that the Democratic Party plays on a little bit, black people, there's a duality. There's like a undertone of something with black people in this country. It's kind of like we can't be really patriotic because we got to kind of hate this country, but we got to love this country and we got to kind of hate the country because
Yeah.
they're always racist and they always never liked us. We always got to carry that with us.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like we're supposed to be patriotic enough to be the Democratic voters, and then we gotta also hate the country enough to be like, you know what, these guys over here don't really like us. You know, and that's a duality that you know what I'm saying?
I
Am
know
I
what
am I
you're
off
saying.
with that?
No, I don't
You
think
know,
that's it. No, I don't think you're off at all.
I think that that's kind of like something they kind of play on, and I think that there's nothing wrong with black people being patriotic and understanding. We understand racism. We understand people don't like us in
Yes.
this country. I'm not raising my children to focus on who don't like them.
No.
I'm not focused on who doesn't like them.
No.
I don't want to they should be aware just like anything else, but they're not going to
100%.
walk around the world focus on who don't like them.
Mhm.
They don't like you.
No.
Of course. You know what I'm saying? So what I would say to black people is like, you know what? This time around, I'm not telling you to vote for Trump, but this time around, really take a look at the party you typically might vote for. Because we gave the Democratic Party about 90% of our vote, at least the last couple elections, if I'm not mistaken. And really take a look now. Look at this party and say to yourself, is this the party for you? Is this really the party for you? And if it is the party for you, then you got to have some type of expectations as something better than what's going on now.
Yes. You deserve that.
You know what I'm saying? We deserve,
We deserve that.
you know.
You meaning we.
Right.
You meaning we
Yeah.
deserve that.
Yeah.
We don't need anybody placating us.
No.
We don't need anybody gaslighting us. We don't play by that.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't play by that in our own community. So why should we accept that on a different level, like on the highest level?
Yep. Yep. Just
Somebody
just,
who's
just
supposed
with
to be,
that.
yeah,
Just like with that.
supporting all of its citizens.
What are y'all, just like you already said, and like we're saying, I parallel that to, don't talk about you. Of course, you got to compare it to Trump, right? I'm not saying you can't compare yourself to him if you're running against him, whether it be Biden or whoever. But the point is, you guys got to talk about what you're gonna do, because they talked about y'all at the convention. They talked about Joe Biden, but they didn't spend all their time talking about Joe Biden. They spent a lot of time talking about what they gonna do.
Yeah.
So y'all got to spend some time, the Democratic Party, talk about what you're going to do and also what you stand for. Stop trying to pretend like you automatically care about everybody, because you don't.
Yeah.
You don't. And, you know, the racism thing, that's not going to work.
I mean, pay close attention to the DNC. Let's see what the message is there.
Listen, I can't wait for the
I'm
convention.
excited for the DNC.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the DNC. Let's see what their messaging is there and if they learned anything.
Man, they got about less than a month to see, but we'll see. We'll see who's gonna
Because
actually
we're going to
run.
see where they really stand. I'm telling you, if they haven't learned anything through this process,
The last month.
the
or so,
last month or
alone.
so, if they haven't learned anything and they still doing the same old, then y'all know what it is.
Yeah, and they're not gonna win.
Jay just told you.
They're not gonna win. And then right now, look, I don't think they're gonna win anyway, but I think this is an opportunity. Trump is gonna be president. Let's keep it funky. Unless some dramatic thing happens, he's gonna be
I
president.
mean, right now, just based on the data,
Based on the data,
based on the data, I mean, it's just like he's 230, 300 and something votes to Biden's 170 something. He's he's gotten all the swing states, and Virginia has now turned red. So it's not looking good. It's not looking good for the Biden campaign or whoever's.
he's not gonna win.
I know it's I don't know, but
Everybody knows he's not gonna win.
let's just see what happens, because right now we don't know who's on the ticket. We don't even know. We're right now it is Biden and Harris, until further notice.
Well, they're not gonna win. I'm just putting it out there. They're not gonna win.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna win.
Not that
either.
I'm trying
It's
to be
just-
negative. They're just not
right,
gonna win.
Yeah,
But the
it's not looking good.
the point is that what y'all gonna do the next 4 years? That's the real question. Because at the end of the day, if you look at when Barack Obama won in 2008 against McCain, and then he won against in 2012 against Mitt Romney, the Republican Party had the same problem then. Their messaging was off. They wasn't connecting with nobody. They didn't have strong candidates. They had the same problem. This stuff is cyclical. They had the same issue. And then on 2016, again, like I said earlier in the pod, Hillary waltzed along like, yeah, it's my turn now. And Trump was like, hey, not really. I'm here. And they didn't see it coming. So the Republican Party started to change the way they did stuff. Donald Trump was a polarizing candidate. They won. So now, I would say my advice on the Dem side is y'all got to start looking at what y'all gonna do for the future. Not just November, but you got some real building to do,
Rebranding to do.
rebranding to do. So
100%.
I'm excited to see what happens. But I think that's
I think that was the first time I said 100%, so I'm happy I held off till the end.
I like 100%. I love it. So I don't see anything wrong with 100%. But the Perceived Value Life podcast, we've been doing this for a minute now. I should be able to say this correctly, but yeah, I'm O Afriye. It's my wife Faith Afriye.
Yes, and you can find me on all the social medias at Have Faith Yoga.
Absolutely. You can catch me. I have another pod called Crucial Convo. You can catch me on Crucial Convo Pod. You can catch me on YouTube. You can catch me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter and TikTok.
All right.
Catch us everywhere. But you guys take a look at the next couple of months. Let us know what you think in the comments. And peace.
Have a great week.